Hello, everybody. Welcome to another discussion video here on the channel. Matt and I, we gave Monk and Ranger a little bit of a hard time in our tier list video. So we thought, hey, maybe today's the day where we can sit back down and I built a monk, Matt built a ranger, and we're going to
prove ourselves wrong.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to do we did our best to build a monk and a ranger that are good enough that hopefully by the end of this talking about each of them, we want to bump them up at least one tier. So as a reminder, the monk was in C tier and the ranger was in D tier. So before we jump into actually talking about the characters we built, don't forget to like the video, leave us a comment down below, tell us what we did wrong, why these could be even better. And also, don't forget to follow us on social media at Rollers Guild DND on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. But with that, I'll go ahead and jump on into the monk I built.
Yeah.
Probably tell by the placeholder name, Jedi Monk, that my theming, my idea was inspired by the idea of the Jedi Knights from Star Wars.
Right.
Because, huge Star Wars fan. I went for my subclass, I went way of the Kensei. So with that monastic tradition, I get the Path of the Kensei feature. So this is a level 5 version. I have a version at 10 and 20 as well. So we'll just take a look at each of those real quick. But starting with the level 5 version, of course, we get unarmored defense. I did points buy for my stat array. And between my stat array and my ancestry bonus, which I'm with a custom lineage for this one. And I believe I put...
It
doesn't actually say here what I put my bonus into, but I believe I put my bonus into dexterity.
Sure.
So with that, I was able to get 2 16s, 1 in dex, 1 in wisdom, which is, those are obviously 2 very important stats for the monk without skimping on my constitution, which is a +2, which is nice. So that means
because one of the things we were talking about with the monk was that it was this melee support fighter that couldn't really deal hits, couldn't be the front line, but is built to work in tandem with other folks and really set the stage for them.
Yeah. So I feel like a respectable 38 hit points at level 5.
Level 5, that's good.
Which is pretty solid. With my unarmored defense, that brings my AC to 16, which I feel pretty good about.
Yeah.
Obviously, you get the normal monk things, your martial arts, your key points, unarmored movement, which at this level, my unarmored movement is up to 50 feet, which is nice. Deflect missiles as normal, all that normal monk stuff. But then where it gets interesting is at level 3, I went Path of the Kensei for my subclass. So I got to pick weapons that would be counted as monk weapons for the purposes of being able to do everything. My Kensei weapons. So I picked the longsword and the long bow as my 2 Kensei weapons. So the long bow is just there because you got to pick 2. And I was like, well, it would be nice to have a solid ranged option. Not really planning on doing much in ranged just because, like I said, This is very inspired by the idea of a Jedi. So the longsword, I think, is going to be the primary weapon of this character. What I like about that is that I can still, because it's a monk weapon, I can still use my dexterity for it, but I don't have to use the martial arts die. So at this level, the martial arts die would be a D6, but actually, because one-handed longsword is a D8, I can still use the D8, but also use my dexterity still. So
That's nice.
That's really nice. It's going to be better damage than pretty much any other monk weapon I could get right now. And then I get agile parry, which I can use to get +2 if I do an unarmed strike as part of the attack action, which works with the Jedi flavor of like a little kick. They do that a lot in all the lightsaber duels and whatnot. And then if I do want to use the longbow, I can use Kensei shots. So I can do an extra D4 of damage, which is not nothing.
It adds up.
Yeah, for my feat with my custom lineage, I took so I have 2 feats now. So on my level 4, I took telekinetic again.
Sure, Jedi.
Oh, that's what it was. And that gave me a +1 to my wisdom. So my wisdom was 15.
Got it.
I got a +1 with the telekinetic feat to my wisdom. So that brought it up to 16. And that also got me the Mage Hand cantrip, which in this case is invisible. So, and then I believe it also gave me the bonus action telekinetic shove for a force push idea. Slow fall, obviously, normal thing. Extra attack, your normal thing. Stunning strike, obviously incredible skill. DC is 14. It's not bad. And then for my starting feat as custom lineage, I took the mobile feat, which got me an extra 10 feet of movement. Dash action means the difficult terrain doesn't cost extra movement. No opportunity attacks against a creature I attempt to attack on my turn. So it's an excellent feat, and it pairs really well with everything this can do. So that's sort of the rundown.
That solves a big problem of
getting
what we were saying of getting up into the fray of things. You can try, but if it doesn't work, you've still got a bunch of movement to get out of there, most likely.
Exactly. My primary weapon is going to be the longsword, probably. That's a D8 +3. But my unarmed strikes are a D6 +3, so not bad. Obviously have flurry of blows still, but I also have, like I said, that telekinetic shove option as an extra thing I can do as a sort of force push. What else? And I have 5 key points, which is
that's great.
Not bad.
It's whatever
to do
level you are, right?
Right. So at higher levels, obviously I have more. Nice. So that's a level 5 version I went through already. I like what options this gives me. I don't know that it's any better than, say, a fighter of a comparable level, but certainly I think this build at least can keep up with a fighter at this level. So
and it's nice that I'm just looking at some of the passive, like your passive stuff's pretty good for it. A 16 of the insight is nice dealing with people.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not something a fighter can typically have.
Right. And monks aren't going to be your skill monkey characters typically anyway, so it's okay that I don't have... I mean, to go through -1 strength is obviously, it is what it is.
You never use it.
But
you never use it for anything unless you're grappled.
Right. And even so, I've got I took proficiency in athletics, so I have a +2 to it
Nice.
anyway. So, okay, let's move over to the level 10 version.
Level 10. We're leveling up.
So level 10. 5 more level ups have gone by. We still see a lot of the same stuff as before. New action is stillness of mind. That's a new big one. Which is good. It's for ending charmed and frightened effects. Again, not only is that just a standard monk ability that you get, but it also pairs really well with the idea of it being a Jedi-based character. 73 hit points at this point, which is really good. I bumped my dexterity on my next ability score improvement to get better damage output. And then that also bumped my armor class to 17.
Always a good choice.
So that's really good. I still, nothing really is, not much has changed in bonus action. Patient defense now. But most of the other stuff is the same. If we go over to features and
what is
traits,
a patient defense does again?
Sorry. Patient defense is you can spend 1 key point to take the dodge action as a bonus action.
That's right.
So disadvantage on, and then down here we have a couple of things that I want to point out that are unique to Kensei monks. So we have the deft strike feature now. So once on each of my turns, when I hit with a Kensei weapon, if I have key points left, I can spend 1 key point to cause the weapon to deal an extra 1d6 damage. That's
useful.
Really great. That's sort of an on command hunter's mark, basically.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. And then one thing I really like is magic Kensei weapons. So my Kensei weapon attacks count as magical for the purposes of overcoming resistance and immunity. That is one thing that we talked about in our tier list video, is that it's nice when classes have a way of doing magical damage that aren't reliant on getting an item. Most DMs, you're going to get magic items from most DMs, but there's no guarantee you're going to get magic items from most DMs. So having that magic Kensei items is weapons is really, really nice, because then your swords, my longsword attacks are going to count as magical.
That's so important once you get up to that level, because you run into so many resistances and immunities.
Yep. Let's see. My unarmed movement is up to 60 feet, which is nice. Deflect missiles is a little better. Let's see. I don't. Sorry. Key and powered strikes. My unarmed strikes also now count as magical. So between my Kensei weapons and my unarmed strikes, I'm doing consistent magical damage. Yes, I got an extra Kensei weapon. I took the quarterstaff. It just, again, at this point, I'm mostly going to use the longsword anyway. But if I wanted to switch things up, I could take the quarterstaff and still get all the Kensei weapon benefits. Evasion now. Evasion is obviously a great ability. Also, rogues get it. So if you, dex saving throws, if you fail, you take half damage. If you succeed, you take no damage.
And you're also very good to begin with. That's
and
a
you're
+8.
Yeah, exactly. My dex save is +8 already, which is really nice. I have the purity of body ability now, so I'm immune to disease and poison. And yeah, I didn't have any other feats. I didn't change my inventory at all, just because it's unclear again what items we're gonna have access to. I figured I'd have access in most campaigns to if I said, hey, I want to be a Kensei monk now, the DM would tell me if the weapons I wanted to take as my Kensei weapons were unavailable for me to buy somewhere. So I went ahead and operated under the assumption that I would be able to buy a longsword somewhere. But other than that, didn't really do any touching of the inventory between 5 and 10.
Yeah.
And I think sorry, no.
So you're halfway through the levels at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So in picturing this monk, what are you envisioning? It's like when it's on the battlefield.
Yeah. So
is it up in front, or is it supportive, or
no? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, level 10, that's halfway through the entire level range. But around level 10 is I feel like where most people cap out in terms of levels, right? Yeah. Maybe a little bit higher than 10, 11, 12 range, but most people don't get into sort of that very high level play. Certainly some games do, but most games don't. So level 10 is, I picked as sort of a milestone because this is where a lot of people's campaigns are going to end, is right around this level. In terms of actually using this character, I do feel like you want to take advantage of the whole kit. So with the mobile feat, I got a whole 10 extra feet of movement, which means I have a 60 feet speed, which is real fast. But I've got a really solid armor class too. 17 is just generally a solid armor class. At level 10, it's definitely a really good one. And that could potentially be even better, again, with magic items and that sort of thing. But so with the 60-foot movement speed, with the mobile feat, which allows me to just ignore opportunity attacks for targets I hit, I do think this would be a great run-in attack and then bounce out type.
And you get to do that
character
without spending the key point of
exactly because
step of the wind.
Yeah. So I don't have to worry about spending key points to get out of dodge nearly as often because of the mobile feat, which is really nice. So I can get in there, hit a target, and get out. Now, if I'm surrounded by multiple targets, I only avoid opportunity attacks from the target I hit. Sure. So if I'm surrounded by multiple targets, the others could still hit me with opportunity attacks. But that's certainly a case where I could either stay in the middle. I think with the +2 Constitution and the 17 armor class, that gives me enough to work with, where if I am in the middle of everything, I am still going to be okay for a round or two. So I've got enough to work with in that regard that I'm not going to drop instantly, but certainly being able to get in, get out versus a single opponent lengthens the amount of time that I'm going to be able to stay in action. Because my unarmed strikes and Kensei weapons overcome magical resistance, I'm not worried necessarily about, those targets that do have that, such as most construct type creatures have some kind of resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage of a non-magical nature. And as well as tons and tons of other creatures, many creatures that have sort of an ethereal nature. We're talking ghosts, specters, that sort of thing, have that sort of resistance. The list of creatures that have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage is really long. So being able to not worry about that is really, really nice. So I do think really good. And again, because of the mobile feat, I can preserve some of those key points I can get off more stunning strikes. I could get off more agile parries. And actually, agile parry would be a really good thing to do in a circumstance where I am surrounded, right? If I
you get a bonus to your
get out
class
without worrying about that opportunity attack, I could spend a key point agile parry as long as I do one unarmed strike on my attack action. And get that bonus to my armor class, which comes up to 19. which is really solid. So I'm really happy.
It's definitely,
with this.
Yeah, it's definitely leaning into some of the. It's reminiscent of the what is it, Battle Master?
Yeah.
Fighter, of having, now you have so many different options. You're not built to be as tanky and deal as much, but it's that it's combined, all of these different tools in this toolkit that you have combined with the potential of a stunning strike.
Yeah. Plus I have the utility of telekinetic shove. If I need to push something back, I can give them a little force push. I have the utility of a mage hand, an invisible mage hand. I want to point out the only other arcane trickster rogues get invisible mage hand, but it's really nice that you get the option to have an invisible mage hand with the telekinetic feat as well. So again, there's some really good utility with that.
Looking good.
Yeah, I mean, I really like it. I think at level 10, it's already really solid. Yeah, but just for the sake of argument, let's see where we get to by the time we get to level 20. Okay, so level 20, right off the bat.
Look at that speed.
By the time I've gotten this character to level 20, I have maxed out both my dexterity and wisdom stats with my remaining ability score improvements. So this means that I have a total armor class of 20. No magic items, base armor class 20.
Yeah.
Agile parry brings that up to a 22. Walking speed of 70 feet. A speedy boy. Also, sure. Monks in the upper levels get proficiency in all saving throws.
That's right.
So I've got.
I've forgotten about that.
I've got bonkers saving throws here. I've got a 21 passive insight. Ain't nobody lying to me. Unless I got expertise in deception, ain't nobody lying to me. Jumping over here, you will notice that now my martial arts die is coming into effect with the longsword, because the martial arts die is now a D10. So I can get those one-handed attacks with my Kensei weapon and do a full D10 of damage with the longsword. Which is great.
You need at level 20.
Yeah. No kidding. Agile parry already talked about. Empty body is an interesting ability. So you get you can spend 4 key points to become invisible and gain resistance to all damage but force damage for 1 minute as an action. You can spend 8 key points to cast the astral projection spell for yourself only without needing material components.
Interesting.
Now that is, if I jump over here, that's going to be, where is it? Sorry, empty bodies. Yeah, that's just a standard monk ability. Apparently. But we'll come back to that. Agile parry, still here. Still is mine, still here. Great. Awesome. Nothing really new in the bonus actions section. Nothing's really changed. Oh, I do have Sharpen the Blade. As a bonus action, I can spend 3 key points to grant 1 non-magical Kensei weapon I touch a bonus to attack and damage rolls equal to the number of key points I spend for 1 minute. So if I spend 1 key point, I can make my sword a +1. If I spend 2 key points, I can make my sword a +2. And if I spend 3 key points, I can make my sword a +3. Now, obviously, if I already have +1, 2, or 3 sword, not going to work on that. But that's a really nice option for getting that extra edge to
someone
damage.
In the party.
It's really nice for, again, if you don't have access to magic items.
Yeah.
Let's see, deflect missiles, slow fall. Those have just gotten better at this point. Slow fall can reduce falling damage up to 100 hit points. Deflect missiles can reduce damage up to 1d10 plus 25. Plus, because when you reduce damage to 0, you can throw it back with a key point. As a monk weapon, my monk weapon damage die is now a d10. So I can do 1d10 damage back, which is great. Full 20 key points at this point. My deft strike ability has now gone up to 1d10. So if I hit with my longsword, that's 1d10 damage. If I want to expend a key point to do deft strikes, that's 2d10 damage for one hit, which is great. Stunning strike is obviously, as we said, insanely good. Unerring accuracy is really good. If you miss an attack while using monk weapon on your turn, you can re-roll it.
Yeah.
It's just says once per turn, so there's no cost to like other resources. It's just once per turn. You miss, you can try to hit again.
Monks hit a lot.
Monks hit a lot, and the one thing I will say is perfect self. That's the level 20 ability. I'm gonna be honest, a little underwhelming, but I think a lot of classes, unfortunately, have underwhelming level 20 abilities. When you roll for initiative and have no key points remaining, you regain 4 key points. That's nice, but it's just it feels a little underwhelming compared to like some classes bards have a similar level 20 ability where like, oh, you don't have any bardic inspiration, you can have some at the beginning of initiative, and it's like, okay, I guess that's like, nice. Thanks. But when you compare that to like, I don't know, that level 20 clerics get, oh, divine favor just works. You know, like
is level 20 when paladins can fly?
It's not. Yeah, that level 20 ability is really lacking in comparison to some. Yeah. No new spells except that astral projection, which I already mentioned. Sure. Features and traits. I just want to see if I didn't talk about any of this. Purity body. Sharpen the blade, just talked about. Tongue of the sun and moon. I can understand all spoken languages. Proficient on all saving throws.
Again, that utility.
Yeah, really good utility. Proficient in all saving throws, and whenever you make a saving throw and fail, you can spend 1 key point to re-roll it and take the second result. That's nice. That's really nice. Timeless body. You no longer need food or water and can't be aged magically or suffer effects of old age, though you can still die of it.
Get out of here, Ranger. We don't need you.
that really plays into that whole Jedi thing. You know, Yoda was 900 years old, right? And he was, I mean, in the prequel trilogy, he was still jumping around like a spry young man.
Whippersnapper.
Yeah, a spry whippersnapper. By the original trilogy, he's too weighed down by his guilt for war crimes that he committed in the Clone Wars.
He still needs food and water.
Around, but
he's snack happy.
Anyway. Yeah, perfect self. I already talked about that. So yeah, I mean, that's basically everything new at this level. I did forget to mention 143 hit points at this level. Again, respectable. Certainly not as high as your fighter would have at this level, or your barbarian might have at this level. But certainly solid. I mean, a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of D8 hit die classes. So certainly 143 is solid. If I wanted more hit points, I would have had to sacrifice either a feat or one of my wisdom or dexterity increases to increase my constitution. But I think that +2 is
it gets the job done.
Like it gets the job done. It's right. So, and again, I mean, I see this as very much like a good get in, get out character, but with that 20 AC, this is a character that can really stay in the thick of it for a pretty good amount of time with an armor class that high. So that is my monk rebuild. So with everything
So we
we've
put
gone
it
over
as
with this month,
C. We put it as C, as needs
we
improvement.
put it
right?
as C as needs improvements. I think with this build, and I know, so first of all, Kensei is of the monk subclasses probably my personal favorite. I think Astral Self is really cool too. I've never tried building one, but I think it's cool.
Well, as someone who tried building one,
yeah,
behind the scenes, we both tried to build one of each, and realized that one of us was much more satisfied with one than the other. So I got Ranger, then
Yep.
got Monk.
Yep.
I tried Way of the Astral Self. It's good because again, it turns a lot of its things into using the Wisdom modifier.
Yeah. Oh, so you can mostly focus on wisdom.
So you can mostly, once again, dexterity and wisdom,
Yeah.
and not having to worry about things. I think one of the impressions that I'm taking away the most is that once you get 10, even 15, probably, levels in this, and that's usually the max that we're getting to.
Yeah, I think
you're really leaning into the utility of being a support class in a unique way that no one else is doing.
Yeah.
Right?
And
the bard is enhancing abilities, the artificer is granting some magic, and really those infusions are really making things interesting, and the monk is getting
stunning.
Support actually in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I didn't necessarily mention or underscore as much last time, of saying this is a support class built for in the thick of it.
Yeah. I think with this experience of building a monk, I've sort of reminded myself that monks are, I think, at their best at slightly higher levels. I think especially under level 5, I think monks can struggle. I think once you get to level 5, you're okay. You've got enough tools that you're gonna be okay.
Stunning Strike.
And Stunning Strike is, as we talked about even in the tier list, an exceptionally powerful ability. I think by the time you get to level 10, and certainly by the time you get to level 15 or 20, you've got even more tools that not only make you really good in that utility role, but allow you to keep up in terms of dealing damage. You certainly can't hit as many times as a fighter, and you can't do as much damage in a single hit as a paladin. But you can do respectable damage all your own and get your stunning strikes. So I think with all of that, I think Kensei, for me personally, is A, but not all monks are Kensei monks. I think for me personally, building this monk made me appreciate the class enough to be willing to bump it up to a B.
I would agree. I think it is better than going through the details and reviewing what that actually does and the potential, and underscoring the fact that it is support, not frontline. For me, was a nice awakening.
Yeah.
But can it be on board with some of the others we put in the A tier? No. Yeah. I don't think it can get there. So B.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Monk.
Congratulations, Monk. You moved up a whole tier. Proud of you. All right. Well, that brings us to the Ranger.
The Ranger.
What did you build us for the Ranger?
Well, let's take a look. Where are we, Ranger? So, for the Ranger, I only built the Ranger up to level 10. I was also doing level 5, level 10, level 15, 20, and I realized I wasn't really changing that much because anything that I was building or planning for the initial levels, there's only one or two things that I swapped out for later on. And one of those being the use of spells, of kind of basing it around a specific spell, which rangers can get on a rest, new spells anytime anyway. So it's really customizable for whatever the day is going to prepare.
I don't think rangers can change out spells
on
a rest.
Let's find out. I bet you're right. Hey, welcome back, everyone. I
Welcome
was wrong.
back.
I just lied to you. So, it's the idea of instead the ranger is going to swap out at levels once it gets higher up.
Gotcha.
It's not like a cleric or druid where I can just swap out any old time on a rest, but when it levels up. So looking at a level 10 ranger, I was thinking all the things that we said we didn't like about the ranger to begin with, right? It was really specific for a certain type of game. That had some abilities that kind of seemed to be a little like defeating the purpose of having of the campaign, right? The be able to track and have the food and water,
right?
That just kind of is a question that you and the DM have to just figure out.
Yeah, and as a quick sidebar, if anybody didn't watch the tier list or didn't watch the entirety of the tier list and is watching this video, first of all, why? But second of all,
what you doing?
Go back and watch the tier list and then come back here. But if you want to continue watching this video, I said in the last episode that if you are in a campaign where it is not something that is fun to track water and food, then the DM has probably already waived the requirement to have to track all of that. So the ranger's abilities that negate needing to track that are useless. And if you're in a group where it is fun for you and the other players to track food and water and that sort of thing, then the fact that the ranger negates it actually takes away some of the fun from the game.
Yep.
So it's an ability that is sort of it's negative on both sides of things. And I'm certainly not the only person who's ever brought this criticism up of the ranger. I know there are other people online who talk about D&D who have brought that criticism up. It's just a criticism I happen to agree with. So
since we're talking about it, I will go ahead and jump to the idea of the good berry. It's a spell that also tackle some of this by supplying sustenance of food and water for one day. You make 10 berries. It's another thing that people have come and criticized and saying it completely defeats the purpose. But it has some other points that we'll get to. So starting with the ranger, I was looking at, we had mentioned in the last time that a lot of folks, when you first approach the ranger, you think of Viggo Mortensen, you think of Aragorn running and chasing the orcs, right?
Yeah.
And so I was looking for a way to kind of sidestep that, because as we discussed, that required investing in your strength score, your dexterity score, your constitution, your wisdom, and just kind of the have it all man that Aragorn really is. And so it's unrealistic to be able to build a good character that's going to be able to actually do all that stuff.
Aragorn rolled his stats and got a positive modifier for every single one.
A good positive modifier.
For every single one. He also probably has the inspiring leader feat.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right.
And then I was thinking, there was someone else running along beside him the entire time, and that was Legolas. And so I started with that, and I built a wood elf.
Interesting.
That comes into play in some really interesting ways of adding a little bit additional speed, being able to only require 4 hours of sleep, so he makes a very good sentry.
Yeah.
For while the rest of the party is taking a little snooze.
And I will say, because of elves' meditation ability, they are technically still able to be paying attention during their 4 hours of long rest, which is nice.
Yeah. And the way that I was able to build him at level 10, we've got a 21 passive perception.
Yeah, that's wild. It's very
of being
high
able to get there
perception
already. But also advantage against being charmed, put to sleep, and then advantage against plants that are magically created, manipulated to impede movement. I don't know if that's a ranger thing or a Wood Elf thing, but I've got it. But there it is. I don't know where it came from. So the idea of a scout, right? Of being able to, a lot of quick movement. Oh, and the Wood Elf is also able to hide. Pretty with the Mask of the Wild. Much easier for it to be able to hide. And so the idea of a scout that is going to use, I think we're going to lean into the longbow trait of it. And you start off with a couple options, be able to use some short swords so that we can use dexterity for everything. Therefore, we're only focusing on dexterity and wisdom for this build. And wisdom, a lot of the spell casting that you're going to need, the save doesn't come up that often. So wisdom can be the lesser of the two. And then we're able to give that same +2 constitution that you had for the monk, just to get it up there for those moments when it does need to rush in and take some hits, or unsuspectingly take some hits, right? Ooh. So looking at all this, the other thing I was wanting to do is find a way to not rely on Hunter's Mark. Because I think Hunter's Mark is an incredible spell, first level spell, concentration, additional d6 on every single hit that you do, as long as you're maintaining concentration, and you can track it for the hour, I think, at first level spell. You're using it to be able to track whatever it is that you've marked. Also, if the thing dies, you can just move your mark to somebody else, as long as you're maintaining concentration. Really good spell, and the ranger's kind of bread and butter. As I was looking at which subclass to pick, I realized that Hunter's Mark, especially with some of the updates that Wizard made to the Ranger to try and fix some of the problems, there are like 3 or 4 different versions of Hunter's Mark. And so in looking at one of the other critiques that I had for the Ranger is, yeah, you've got access to spells, and that sets you apart from a fighter with the Outlander background. But if you're using Hunter's Mark for everything and relying on that, that's your concentration gone. That's spells that you're going to keep burning through. You don't feel that much like a spellcaster. So what can you do instead? And I decided to instead lean into the idea of the Zephyr Strike, which is also a bonus action, also concentration, but you gain advantage on the next hit. You have a movement speed up to 30, and you don't provoke opportunity attacks. So just like that monk, being able to get in and get out if needed, if you're going to use a short sword, but it also applies to weapon attacks, meaning this longbow at 150-foot range has the ability to get extra force damage on it.
And that's a 1d8 instead of 1d6.
And that's a 1d8 instead of a 1d6.
Yeah, that's nice.
Which bumps it up, and I think Hunter's Mark, there's nothing about tracking, and all the other versions of Hunter's Mark don't have any tracking components to them. So if you are wanting to be that tracker, that hunter, Hunter's Mark is probably the one to go in. But I think Zephyr Strike can really handle the job. And that can be that concentration, and you get up there and you have enough spell slots that that's the one that you can use. I also took things like Pass Without a Trace for helping the party move around. I took Summon Beast just to kind of poke a jab at the Beastmaster Ranger.
Sure. Updated Beastmaster is better, but original Beastmaster is just straight up garbage. It's just
not worth your time.
It's just not good.
And so the subclass that I ended up taking was the Monster Slayer. The reason for that is because you get some interesting things. come back to some other things. Wow, it is hard to scroll through all this.
There's a lot.
So, as an action, I can use one of those spell slots. Not my favorite thing, but I can use it to immediately learn a creature I can see has any immunities, resistances, vulnerabilities. Oh, no. There's another thing that's a spell slot. You just get these 3 times.
Okay.
Very useful thing for finding out if you need to pull out the magic weapon, as we talked about before, right? There's a lot of things probably at this level, we're at level 10, that are going to resist just straight up regular damage, and you're going to have some resistances, vulnerabilities hiding around. But the Monster Slayer gets this Slayer's Prey, and this is one of the things that is Hunter's Mark-esque. It's a little weird. So bonus action again, 60 feet, designate 1 creature, another 1d6, just like Hunter's Mark. But it just lasts until you designate a different creature. There's no concentration to this at all. So this could stack with the Zephyr Strike if you were maintaining concentration on the Zephyr Strike. You could, on your next turn, bonus action, get a little additional, whoops, if I click on it, it does things. Get a little additional on top of that. So we're dealing a lot more damage that is, I think, comparable. You're not hitting as often as a fighter, but the amount of times that you're hitting, and Zephyr Strike gives you advantage, it's a good chance you're going to hit.
I do like, I guess the difference between this and Hunter's Mark, right, is Hunter's Mark could technically apply to every single hit, as opposed to Slayer's Prey, which is just the first time you hit on each of your turns.
It's only the first one.
But, you're not burning a spell slot for it. You're not burning a spell slot for it. You only get one. It's a good one. Yeah.
So the other very similar to Hunter's Mark, that I took it on this just so we could look at it, is this Favored Foe. It replaces the Favored Enemy feat with the optional updates that you can take. So once again, it's when you hit with an attack roll, which is similar to that monk feature that you had. You can mark the target for 1 minute or until you lose concentration. So it's when you hit concentration, 1d6. And I think this increases as you level up. So this is a 1d6 at level 6. It's a 1d4 originally. And you can use this.
That's nice.
Certain number of times equal to your, I believe it's your proficiency bonus.
Yeah, a lot of the Tasha's Cauldron stuff scales with the proficiency bonus, which I really like. Tasha's Cauldron made Sword Singer much better, just as a total sidebar, because not Sword Singer, Blade Singer. Sword Singer is an Elder Scrolls thing. Blade Singer Wizards, it makes them a lot better, because Blade Singer Wizards in base in Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, you only get 2 uses of Blade Song, and that's it. Whereas in Tasha's Cauldron, they made it equal to your proficiency bonus, so you get a lot more, which is nice. If you get Favored Foe, that's Favored Foe plus your Monster Slayer thing. That's an extra 2d6 on every hit. Or Zephyr Strike is 1d8, 1d6 extra. So that's good.
So it's a lot of options, and I think for this character it would have to be, as you're going, kind of playing out and seeing which one is working better for you, which one's flavor is better, and kind of customizable in that sense. I think if I were to actually take it, I wouldn't do Favored Foe. I would rely upon the concentration of Zephyr Strike and the Slayer's Prey, Foe Slayer. There's a lot of really gnarly badass sounding things.
Monster
Slayer. And kind of use that and free up some of the other things that you would get from the Favored enemy instead, which is one of the original things of kind of choosing. It's not like, personally, it's not like a favorite feature of mine. You just choose from this long list of things that the monster slayer gets protection from good and evil, or evil and good, whichever one it is. And it's the exact same list. So I think there's an opportunity to lean into, I hunt these things, and building yourself in this way. And I took a lot of the same languages that kind of lean into that. This elemental, the Fae, fiends. I guess celestial would be another one. Draconic would be another. Just kind of flavoring what you are on the outskirts of civilization, defending against. Oh, and I guess since I'm here, what was the background that I took? I think I took Far Traveler. I think I did Far Traveler. Outlander was just a little boring and repetitive, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And Far Traveler gave me, well, we can look it up. I don't know where, how.
If you go to description, you should be able to look at your background.
Yeah. Far Traveler. Oh, I see the feature. Well, it gives me something. It might be a it's one of these.
Tool proficiency.
It might be an insight.
Or
it might be a
ability proficiency. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, somehow I get these abilities, which gets us to this little guy. With this build, because of this Deft Explorer, which replaces the one that gives you favorite terrain, the original one, you get all these different things. So you get to get a couple extra languages, and then you also get to double one of your skill proficiencies. So that is how we got up to the crazy 21 perception eventually, once we get up there, because we get some expertise. This is how we get the extra walking speed. We get climbing speed, swimming speed equal to that 35 of what it is. How it got up to 40, I will tell you. Oh, wait, that's how what? 35 at the base with the wood elf plus 5 gets us to 40. So this is 40 walking, climbing, swimming speed. I can't fly. Sad day. Tireless, now that we're at 10th level, temporary hit points as an action to regain 1d8 plus 3. It's in there. And then I can also end a level of exhaustion, which is how they chase the hobbits. They're taking the hobbits to Isengard. Yeah. And so with all of these different things, I took the archery fighting style to lean into the idea of we're just going to do bow and arrow. When it's needed, I can use the short sword, get in, do damage that's comparable because of the other abilities that I have. Even though it's a 1d6, it's going to be maybe a 2d6, maybe a 2d6 plus a d8. I don't know, whatever the action economy will allow for. With all of these things, I think we start getting close to rivaling what my big critique was. A fighter with an Outlander background, I've said that like 12 times, can't lean in this hard, or it isn't going to want to lean in this hard. Right? To doing these kinds of things. The last little bit is with this Goodberry spell. Let's say you are in a 6-person party. That's what our game is, right? So at the end of the day, Goodberry lasts for 24 hours. So at the end of the day, you get your berries, hand it out to the party. Everybody has a little snack, your lemnis bread. And then you're good. And then you still have the remaining, for that scenario, 4 berries, which are get out of jail free cards if somebody goes down. You can hand them out. They're like potions, but they're only going to restore 1 hit point. If you don't use them, they're gone, of course, after 24 hours. But it's a really nice thing that at the end of the day, because we are maybe saving some of our spells, or blowing them all in Zephyr Strike, maybe. But because we're saving some of them, we can hand them out and be a little bit of a buff or a safety net for the party the next day. And the fact that this guy has the speed to be able to get in, Zephyr Strike is no opportunity attacks. Whether you hit or not, because it's concentration, you can just cast it, you get the movement, it's until your next hit. So if you use your action to use your good berry, bring someone back up, you can get out. The guy's probably going to go down again, but you can get out, and you haven't used a spell. And I think that's really interesting. It's not necessarily the best use, I would argue, all the time, but if someone's about to die, it's an option that you have.
Yeah.
So nothing has gotten to super crazy impressive stats. The 18 is good. 18 is really good.
At level 10, 18 is about as good
10?
as you can hope for, unless you're really lucky with rolling stats.
Yeah. For this, I did the standard array for starting us off. I really wanted to try and find a way of boosting the investigation score and getting it higher. Because of that scout, I just couldn't find a way to do it.
Yeah.
Armor class is fine. He's wearing, I presume you would be able to get like studded leather, which is 13 plus the 4 to make that actually a 17.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of this is solid, right? You've got some really solid damage output. I think still personally, I would rather play a Battlemaster Ranger, a Battlemaster Fighter, with the archery fighting style, because you can do so many other things with your bow and arrow if you do Battlemaster Fighter. Plus that recovery, right? The Ranger's self-recovery option that you got with the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything option, that's an action. Fighters get recovery as a bonus action. Second Wind is a bonus action, and it's more. Yeah, they don't get to recover a level of exhaustion, but how often in a combat encounter does exhaustion actually come into play? Not very often. It can. It certainly can. And when it does, being able to recover the level of exhaustion, you're going to be thankful that you have that. But I don't know how often that's actually going to come up. Or if you really wanted to run into that nature-focused background, I think a scout rogue works really well. You know, that's a subclass of the rogue we haven't talked much about, but the scout rogue does a lot of the stuff that a ranger can do as well. Plus, it's a rogue, so it gets sneak attack, which I still think is going to be comparable or better damage than, you know, all of those concentration like elements compiled on top of each other.
Yeah,
this is good. It's solid. But I think other classes can do a lot of this better. I think the reason why I think I changed my mind on Monk was I think a lot of the stuff that Monk could do after reviewing it is stuff that other classes can't do, or at least can't do nearly as well. I think most of the stuff Ranger can do, even with this build, which like I said, I like this build. I think there's other classes that can do it and can do it in most cases better, in my opinion.
Yeah, or equally, or I think it's
or
equal
as well.
And a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. That said, I would be willing to move Ranger out of D tier into C tier.
Needs a little bit of improvement.
But
yeah, I definitely think this is one of the only subclasses that I was looking at that really gets it to this level.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like why I also struggled a lot with building the monk, is there are only one or two classes or subclasses that feel like it can get to that comparable level.
Yeah.
And we would probably have to delve deeply into every single one to start finding those things that would prove us otherwise.
Yeah.
At the end, this is a lot of interesting things that, like you said, the scout is going to be able to do. A fighter with a fighter with an Outlander background can be comparable,
And
plus a couple other tricks.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, like Battle Master fighter with the archery fighting style. I mean, they can do so much with their freaking arrows.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's
and
arcane archer is disappointing. I think a ranger is going to be better than an arcane archer, to be honest. But Battle Master fighter with archery fighting style, I think, does all of this.
Does the job
better.
The one thing that I think this does is what feats did I take? We never talked about that. Oh, I got some elven accuracy.
That's nice.
I can reroll with that advantage from the Zephyr Strike, but that's not something.
Yeah, you basically have triple advantage.
Yeah.
Which is
and then I use the other ability score improvement to bump some stuff up.
Yeah.
Bump a Constitution and a Dexterity, some Wisdom up twice, I think. But those aren't things that are specific to the Ranger. I think where the Ranger actually can't be beat is in the campaign where the DM says ahead of time, this is the game. We're going to be doing a cross-country wilderness survival type thing. Maybe they would say, no good, Barry. You actually do have to forge, or you can homebrew it a little bit to say, okay, you're good at this. That means you have advantage on your checks. I'm not going to say you automatically find this. You can nerf that to make it still interesting, right?
Right. And I think
there are ways that you and the DM can get creative.
Yeah, and I think there are even some third-party supplements that are either out or are coming out that explore some of that. I know I backed one on Kickstarter. It's not out yet, but it's called Weird Wastelands, and does do some of this like stuff where it really bolsters that wilderness survival aspect. And I'm really excited about the book because that's something that I personally feel in my own home games I'm not as good at making interesting. So if
you do it, I'll play this Ranger.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens.
Having a book that a third party a supplement that can make that a little bit more interesting, I think is something I'd be excited to try. But that all being said, I know, that's a homebrew option. That's, third party supplement options, but like rules is written, it just negates that whole thing. And then again, what's the point of even tracking it in the first place? So
yeah.
I think
here it is.
Primeval awareness.
Yeah. That's just a thing.
That's a location thing for
you can. Yeah, that's not bad. Within a mile, again, that same list of things, but it's a spell slot.
No one else can quite do that. But
how useful? It lets you know. It's really easy to use it and say, nope, there's nothing, and then you get
it's either yes or no, and it's like, great, okay, there's an aberration in with there. It's not even, it doesn't even tell you specifically which of those things. You can say like, I'm going to use primeval awareness. And so the DM could just say, within 1 mile of you, there's at least one aberration, celestial, dragon, elemental, fae, fiend, or undead.
I would push back. I would push back and say that you could know the type. Okay. I know that it doesn't say it, and other like spells and things do say it. I would push back and say like this ability wouldn't exist otherwise, but you're right, it doesn't say it.
Right.
It doesn't say it in the text.
I mean, regardless, again, it's like, it's 1 mile. Like, how useful is it to know that somewhere within a 1 mile radius, there's one of these things? you
You're
know.
not going to use it unless you already know they're there, and this is confirmation.
Yeah.
And then you used a spell slot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to move Ranger up to C tier. Possibly.
I think I had a lot of fun thinking about how to use that Zephyr Strike, which is it an only Ranger spell? Do wizards get Zephyr? Wizards might get Zephyr Strike.
Let me check.
Please hold, because I mean, Zephyr Strike, Steel Wind Strike is a 5th level Ranger spell. This build gets eventually Banishment. It gets Hold Monster, level 17, but it's up there. Some really nice things that are on this spell list. That since we're conserving...
Zephyr Strike is Ranger only.
Ranger only. Interesting. I think that's a forgotten spell. I wonder where it's from. Where Zephyr Strike is from. What source book?
Xanathar's.
Xanathar's. I think there are better concentration spells, right? Especially like hand this to like any smite spell is comparable to this, but this gives a little bit of movement, and smites have to be, like you said, smites have to be up close.
Yeah.
Have to be a melee.
Yeah.
It can't be the ranged. And I think that is a really interesting thing. There are little things that I think I want to put it C plus B minus. It's not. We together have poked enough holes to say you're not done yet. There's something else you need. But I don't think with this particular build, others can't do it, but with this particular build, it's possible to start getting up there.
Yeah.
To an okay status.
Yeah, I would be fine with moving Ranger up to C tier. I think depending on the subclass, you could get up to B tier, right? Monster Slayer, I think maybe as a B tier. Potentially. Horizon Walker, I know I've looked at Horizon Walker before. I think Horizon Walker gets some abilities that also can boost damage.
Good.
Loomstalker. I think those like particular subclasses, but I think the class as a whole probably B tier. Just like I said, Kensei Monk, I would say arguably is an A tier. But if you're talking about just the monk as a whole, I think it's B tier. You know what I mean? So I think the same thing to be said for Ranger is that maybe the better subclasses of Ranger could get it up to a B tier. But I think the Ranger overall is probably a C tier.
It's still suffering.
Yeah.
But we're no longer calling it
calling it bad. So, real quick, let's pop over to our new tier list. I just updated it.
Ooh.
So.
Wow. It's going to be so pretty.
So, our new tier list, as you can see, Monk has been bumped up to B tier, and Ranger has been bumped up to C tier, and now no one exists down in D tier.
Hooray!
So
it's almost like this is a good game.
It's almost like this is a good game that we enjoy quite a bit, obviously. So as a quick rundown, once again, S tier is Cleric, Druid, Wizard. A tier, Barbarian, Bard, Fighter, Paladin, Rogue, Warlock. B tier, Sorcerer, Artificer, Monk, and C tier, Ranger. So this is the new final tier list for the classes as a whole. So thank you for building a Ranger for us, Matt. That got it out of
thank
that
you for the monk.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was fun. Well, folks, like I said, this is the new official final tier list. If you have any complaints about our tier list, please tell us about those complaints down in the comments below.
Please complain.
Please feel free to. We'd love to hear your feedback. But I think with that, we will go ahead and end tonight's discussion video. Thank
We
you very
see
much
people
for
again
watching.
soon, though.
Yeah, we'll see y'all again.
We'll see
real
people soon. We're getting to work.
This episode
Story's kicking off.
is it should be 2 weeks from when this episode goes live that you see the next new main episode of the Gilded City. We are very excited to come back. I know I'm personally getting antsy to get back into the actual campaign. So we're really, really excited to get going again with that. But we will go ahead and end for the night. If you want to see more discussion content on the channel, either between Matt and me or just in general between anybody in the cast,
or Ben and anyone else,
please let us know in the comments below as well. But with that, go ahead and say good night. Bye, everyone.